Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for January 2025. Happy New Year! I hope everyone had a good holiday and is ready for another year of Humble Choice. Luckily, Humble is starting off the year with a good selection of games. Let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below. Be sure to check the timestamps for specific games and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting us off is the Pegasus Expedition, a 4X turn-based sci-fi strategy game. In the game, you'll be managing fleets, constructing outposts on planets, and planning out your strategic approach for battles. All this while continuing pushing forward into the expanse and exploring new technologies to help you do so. What sets the Pegasus Expedition apart is its focus on a narrative campaign. You play as one expeditionary fleet of 3, sent from Earth to hopefully find new planets to settle in an attempt to escape their fate from aliens trying to destroy humanity. So what do you do upon entering a new system in a new galaxy? Well, basically try to destroy the native alien civilization, of course. Anyway, attempts to tie storytelling to the 4X genre around events or specific faction questlines isn't something new, but I don't think I've ever seen it done to this extent, with cutscenes or dialogue events every few turns based on how you're progressing in the missions. Unfortunately, I couldn't get into this game at all. The drab visuals felt off-putting, the writing was just mediocre and uninspired, and even the gameplay was just okay. I think I was immediately disappointed when I found out that the space battles were reduced to flickering lights for the most part, rather than a grand space battle spectacle. Although, despite them being largely automated, I didn't actually mind the planning steps where you need to decide your formations and approach. During the battles, it was nice that you even had some abilities that could be used to turn the tides. However, ultimately, I was bored with this one. Try it out if you really need that sci-fi 4X fix, and have already got your fill from other games like it on the market. This one will definitely be a pass for me though. Next is Dordogne, a wholesome narrative adventure. You play as Mimi returning to her late grandmother's home in hopes to find something her grandmother left for her. As she explores the house, she recalls forgotten memories of a time spent when she visited her grandmother for a summer as a child in this idyllic French countryside. Obviously, as it's already apparent, the visuals are striking with a really nice watercolor aesthetic. I especially love the art scene when Mimi is a child, as much of it is bright and vibrant. It oozes that cozy vibe and vicariously transports you to that place. I couldn't help but be reminded of the charming countryside depicted in Studio Ghibli's My Neighbor Totoro. The gameplay itself is fairly simple. You walk around and interact with things. There's some light puzzle solving, but it's nothing difficult. Exploration rewards you with several collectibles that either bring more light to the narrative when exploring as an adult, or allows child Mimi to decorate her binder with more pictures, poems, and stickers. The latter part really cements that cozy feeling, and actually was nice to create the pages and add them as part of her summer adventure. I thought the story was compelling and the characters feel more nuanced the more you uncover things about them. I'm eager to play the rest of it, and I'm anticipating a great emotional catharsis by the time I reach the end, as these types of games seem to have. Box's Lost Fragments was a game I immediately judged upon realizing it was a puzzle game. I'm not a fan of puzzle games myself. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mind puzzles in my games, but I hate puzzles that rack your brain. If I can't figure it out after a few tries and no more than 10 or 15 minutes of trying to solve it, then I'm probably going to search for the solution on Google. Needless to say, I would never purposely seek out a puzzle game and immediately figured Boxes wasn't going to be my jam. However, I came away from my hour being pleasantly surprised with it. Much of the puzzle solving in Boxes actually just involves a player being observant and trying to mess around with the box puzzles that are in front of them. This involves a lot of turning dials, flipping switches, and opening little compartments. In these boxes, you'll find certain objects, with some having their own mini puzzle, and are used to solve the other puzzles on or within the box. Each of these magical boxes are crafted with a lot of detail, and I really like cracking each one and seeing how it all unfolded. The game also realizes that you may not be the brightest puzzle gamer and gives you the option to ask for a hint via the magical mask you have. This highlights certain areas of interest you should be paying attention to. There's also an option to skip a puzzle. I'm not entirely sure if that means skipping a small puzzle section or an entire box, but it was nice to see added for really difficult ones. Luckily, all the puzzles I came across were intuitive enough that I never used that option. I greatly enjoyed my time with this despite my initial misgivings, and I'm glad that the game proved me wrong. Definitely would like to come back to this at some point. Next up is Fort Solis, which is not quite a walking simulator, but kind of. It has more interactivity than what I would expect a walking simulator to have. The game was made to have an immersive cinematic experience that explores the mystery of what happened at Fort Solis. I guess when I think about it like that, the game reminds me of something in between a walking simulator and a game like the Dark Picture Anthology series. Anyway, players take the role of Jack Leary, a grizzled technician ready for a vacation from the inhospitable Martian workplace. Of course, he receives an emergency signal from Fort Solis and decides to check it out because of protocol or whatever. During his exploration, he's accompanied in the comms with his partner who provides enough banter to keep things lively. Here is where everything shines. The voice actors do an excellent job delivering their lines and making their interactions feel believable.
At least Solar had a more engaging premise.
Dead Solar.
Yeah.
It was just an idiot clearly searching a haunted station. I just heard it.
Huh. For the record, I'm not searching. I'm investigating.
The story is doled out largely through this and whatever Jack finds in the outpost. I didn't get very far to understand what exactly is going on, but things obviously seem off with its abandoned halls and hints that something bad happened. And no, if anyone is thinking it, I don't think this is meant to be a scary game. I expect some unsettling moments and that probably something horrific has happened at Fort Solis, but nothing like Dead Space or any other sci-fi horror. No space monster here as far as I can deduce from my time with it and the Steam page. What does seem like a compelling story seems to be bogged down by the gameplay. I don't expect much from these games, and here, yeah, it's not much. There's some quick-time events and light puzzle solving in the form of finding the right object to move forward. It's that latter part that really sucks. The walking speed is fine when you're encountering stuff that's new around every corner, but when you need to backtrack or start searching every nook and cranny, well, it gets annoying really quick. Although, I'm sure I'll play this one at some point again because the story and setting are immediately compelling to me. Beneath Oresa is a roguelike deck builder with its own spin on the formula, although I'd argue that it doesn't really change much from the other games like it in the genre. In Beneath Oresa, combat takes place on a 3D field instead of a 2D one as many deck builders tend to be, and movement around this field is dynamic and changes as the player character and enemies all make their respective moves. Your character is in a near zone when near enemies, and any enemies attacking from a distance is in a far zone. There are a lot of cards that gain benefits when attacking near or far, so it's an important factor to consider. Surprisingly, there is no repositioning, but I think it's because that isn't really as necessary since you're always on the attack or improving your guard. Obviously, other deck builders have done similar things with lanes and positioning characters in a back or front rank. However, I think Beneath Oresa's presentation of all this is fresh and engaging. As in any of these games, there are plenty of characters to choose from. In this one, you actually choose a character which defines your playstyle, and then further augment with a companion. This allows for a lot of potentially different runs depending on your combinations and the cards you select as you play through a run. However, also, like many of these kinds of games, all of those options are locked until you continually play, leaving you very crimped in the beginning in terms of how you can play. I'm unsure if Beneath Oresa offers that much that's fresh in terms of gameplay compared to others like it, but I think its presentation makes this a fun concept and I enjoyed my time with it. Although I do wish it had tooltips for the various different symbols, because a lot of the time I wasn't sure what I was selecting. And a better tutorial would be nice rather than the 5 or so slide cards you could read at the beginning of the game. All that said, I think it's worth a look. Following up is Blasphemous 2, a dark fantasy Metroidvania Souls-like, which is obviously a sequel to the original. If you're a really long-time subscriber of Humble Choice, then you would have received the first one in the December 2019 bundle, literally the first choice bundle after they rebranded the service. And I'm still slightly bitter about that because my Blasphemous key was region locked, so I was never able to redeem it. With that said, I never played the first one. I'd say it's not really necessary though. I mean, would there be things in the story that I would understand better if I played the first? Maybe. Everything here felt esoteric and vague, so I don't really think so. It had a similar vibe to a FromSoft game, which makes sense given the kind of game that it is. I don't really care about story or lore that much in a FromSoft game because of their annoyingly indirect methods of storytelling. And frankly, I don't care that much here. The gameplay is always what keeps me hooked, and Blasphemous 2 delivers. First off, the pixel art is gorgeous. I like the designs of the environments and enemies along with the Catholic and Spanish inspirations. It makes sense to me now why Stone of Madness, the dev's next game, literally takes place in a Spanish monastery. Their attention to detail and color choices with the art really delivers a clean look to the player without sacrificing anything in what they want to convey. Combat is pretty fun. I chose the rapier and dagger weapon, which was the fastest choice out of the three. This meant a flurry of attacks and I could parry. But, as is always the case in these games, I sucked at it. I like that this weapon had a dash attack combo, which I probably abused. I think it'll be fun to try out different weapons in the game though, but I was stuck with what I had for the foreseeable future, so choose wisely in the beginning. I definitely want to come back to play this one. Although, despite me saying that playing the first one probably isn't necessary, I know that my brain won't let me play this one without playing the prequel first. So, it will probably be a while before I come back to this. The penultimate title is Jagged Alliance 3, a turn-based tactics sequel to a game that was released over 20 years ago. It plays on action movie tropes as you manage a mercenary team sent on, I assume, various jobs. To start, your mercs are sent in to rescue a kidnapped president from a ruthless warlord. I think the setting is fun and reminds me of things like classic Schwarzenegger or Stallone films. I especially liked how my chosen characters all seem to have their own lines to say, whether in the story dialogue or in combat. Sometimes I'd even make a comment on another in the group, which is pretty impressive given just how many mercenaries there were to choose from.
Next time, try aiming instead of flexing, steroid.
However, I think the UI and onboarding could be better. The campaign throws you right into it with choosing your guns for hire. Initially, I was overwhelmed by all the options and their individual stats, and since I had no experience with the franchise before, I obviously wasn't sure what to prioritize. I think the appropriate answer is just to choose whoever you think sounds cool, as long as your funds can pay for their contracted time. And that also suggested to me that you'll probably be using many different mercs over a campaign. Luckily though, the game does give you some recommendations, which I took. The actual gameplay is similar to other titles we received in Humble Choice in the past. You can move around freely until you engage in combat, whether getting the drop on them or they spot one of your characters. This then starts a fight and switches to its turn-based combat. Cover is important as you'd expect, as well as trying to flank to line up the best shots. Jagged Alliance 3 has a unique system where you can aim at certain body parts, which can help you in trying to target exposed areas on the enemy's body, disable them, or do more damage, like a headshot. You could also spend more action points to achieve better results. I didn't like how I couldn't see a percentage though, but I guess if the circle is red, it's probably expected to be a low hit chance. All in all, I liked what I played and will be looking forward to coming back to this. The headliner this month is Against the Storm, a city builder with a very unique concept in that it's also a roguelike. This had me intrigued to see just how well a combination like that could actually be pulled off. So far, I think it's shown a lot of promise. My close to an hour and a half was spent running through the 2 tutorial towns the game has you create. This shows you the basics of building a town, gathering resources, and keeping your people happy. And by people, I mean multiple races being giant beavers, lizardmen, and of course humans. And that's just what I encountered in my very short time. Each of these races excel in certain jobs and all have their own specific needs that need to be met in order to keep them happy. And Against the Storm, you'll create many different cities to expand outwards and help push back the Blight Storm. During a match, there will be random boons the Queen will grant her Viceroy, that's you, in order to better achieve her wishes. Along with that, each map also has different modifiers that could change things slightly, along with your own chosen caravan to start your town and whatever upgrades you've gained throughout consistent play. Basically, all the roguelite elements. I haven't progressed far enough to really comment on the whole package that much, but from what I played, it seems really fun. I grew up playing Caesar 3, and while I haven't put as much time into the city building genre as I would like over the years since, this one definitely does pique my interest. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Also, I'd be grateful if you could please give the video a like if you're enjoying it, because that really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm gods. Overall, this is a really solid month. Although, not gonna lie, I was a bit surprised we didn't get a AAA title in the month. And no, I'm not someone who expects a AAA title in every Humble Choice. However, in the year since I started reviewing these bundles, and even looking back further since Humble Monthly had been Humble Choice, it usually does have one. Luckily, most of these games uphold the bundle nicely to make that letdown easy to swallow. Probably wouldn't have been anything I wanted anyway. Before I get to my recommendations, I'd like to point out that my 2024 year-end review for Humble Choice is out for any who missed it and are interested. Check the card above. Alright, now let's get into it. And as I always start, we're looking at the must-plays this month, and here I've placed Against the Storm and Dordogne. While I don't know how grating or potentially refreshing the roguelite elements will be in Against the Storm, I could say that I'm greatly intrigued by the premise, and the gameplay was solid. I genuinely wanted to keep playing instead of stopping to write this review, so that must be a good sign. Dordogne is another game I'm kinda going off of intuition. As a game with the narrative being the strongest focus, it's obviously going to be hard to definitively say it's a must-play, but for me, right now, I feel that it is. I like the cozy nature of it, and I'm a fan of these kinds of stories. Games like To the Moon I still remember to this day, and I think about from time to time. I'm hoping Dordogne will be the same. In the strong recommendations, I place Blasphemous 2, Jagged Alliance 3, and Box's Lost Fragments. Blasphemous 2 has an excellent art design paired with fun gameplay. I imagine the difficulty might scare some away, but if not, then I'm sure it's worth a go. Jagged Alliance 3's premise is something different than what I'm used to playing, and I appreciate that. I'm sure that some of the overwhelming aspects of the game will be smoothed out as I spend more time with it. Finally, Boxes was such a nice surprise. I must still remember my time playing Myst and Riven as a kid, and never really understanding what the heck I was supposed to do. That has since traumatized me to a point of never wanting to touch another puzzle title. I'm glad that this Boxes has shown me that maybe I'm not so puzzle stupid. In the week recommendations, my choices here were Beneath Oresa and Fort Solis. Beneath Oresa has an excellent presentation, but I'm not entirely convinced it's doing anything that much different than many other deck builders. It was fun though, and that presentation might be what brings me back to it more than the many others I've gained from Humble Choice in the past. Fort Solis brings a compelling story with some excellent acting, but the slow walk speed really slows things down. I'm hoping this isn't an issue throughout the game and that I just missed something that was incredibly obvious. Finally, in the Don't Bother With section is the Pegasus Expedition. Honestly, this game just didn't click with me at all. I'm sure others might find it interesting because of the narrative campaign paired with the 4X elements, and even the 4X gameplay might be something that feels good to some. But the whole time playing, I just couldn't help but think I'd rather be playing something like Stellaris. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.